Hello all, I'm back with Nigel and we're doing a follow-up from the earlier video where we showed you about the apples when they were in blossom. So over to Nigel, here he is.
Right, we're going to have a look at a few of the varieties that are in the garden and which are now starting to develop. You might not know enough about apples to know that there are really three types. There are the phase 1 apples, which are very early, like Discovery. Then you've got the mid-season apples like Cox or Braeburn, which you're familiar with from the supermarkets. And then you've got phase 3 apples, which are very late. And these never get into the supermarkets because they have slightly unusual flavours, but they're far superior in their keeping quality.
Right.
Right, if you'd like to have a look at some of these, we might be able to tell which are earlies and which are late just from the size of them. The general rule is that if you have an apple which ripens rapidly, then it won't keep very long. So if we look at this one here, you can see this is relatively large at the present time.
Okay.
If you look at the one next to it, this is a very late apple, and you can see it's developing much more slowly.
Yeah.
So we can say that this one is going to ripen very steadily, and it's going to keep for a long time probably. This other one is only going to keep probably for a few weeks, and it'll be ripe. I think this one's ripe in mid-September.
Okay. So am I right in saying that the earlier the apple matures, the less time that you can actually keep it?
That's the general rule. There are a few exceptions, but that is true for nearly all apples.
Right, okay. Right, so I don't know whether you can remember on the earlier video, but we were talking about the blossoms and different varieties what Nigel grows. If you look here, you can see these apples which are red. This is something new to me because I've always seen them as green in the earlier stages. But these are actually a red fleshed apple, aren't we right there, Nigel?
Yes, these are quite unusual. The whole plant for this particular tree, if you look at the leaves, you can see the leaves, although they're green, there is a hint of red about them, and if I turn a leaf over, you may be able to see there are reddish veins in it. And in fact, trees like this, there is a red pigment going through the flowers, the wood, and the apples themselves. And if you slice an apple, this is one that's fallen off, you can see it's red inside.
Wow, just look at that.
A lot of these red-fleshed apples don't taste very good. There are one or two that have good flavours, but many of them have got poor flavours. And it's one of the things that Leicestershire Heritage Apples is doing. We're using red-fleshed apples as parents, and we're crossing them with better flavoured English apples. Most of these red-fleshed apples are actually foreign.
Okay.
To get an apple with a spectacular appearance and a decent flavour.
That's interesting to know. I'm just gonna. Okay, I'm just been chatting to Nigel, and something what I didn't realise was how to tell the difference between a hand pollinated apple and a naturally pollinating apple. And I'll let Nigel explain this.
Yeah, what you can see on this tree, you can see that these two apples look slightly peculiar because the end is slightly sunken, and you can see the apple is slightly flat.
Okay.
And now if you compare that's hand pollinated.
Yeah.
If we now move across to this one, this is the same tree, same variety of apple, and you can see that looks more normal.
Protrudes,
Yeah, it's got this little, I think it's called the calyx that protrudes from the end.
Right.
And
all right.
So that's a bee pollinated apple.
Oh, that's interesting to know. Nigel, this tree looks a bit like a mulberry, so how did you get the shape to look like that?
Well, I used to have an elderly Italian neighbour, and he told me that a mulberry tree could be trained as a parasol. And so what I did, I had a rather unruly shape on that particular mulberry. So what I did, I got a wire hoop and I made it into a circle, and I put it around the tree at a height of about 8 feet. And then I wired it in position, and I cut all the branches back to the hoop, so I had a sort of circular framework. And then I left it for a while, and after about 8 weeks I had lots of shoots about 1 metre long, hundreds of them, and some of them were a little bit thicker obviously. And then my neighbour Tino, he said, right, what you do now is you take those shoots, take the 3 or 4 strongest ones, and you bend them across, holding it by the tip, bend them across, holding by the tip, and tie them in position. So you get the hoop going like that and like that.
Yeah. Bit like a willow, branches fall down.
Yeah, very similar. In fact, mulberry branches are very like willow. They used to use mulberry, I believe, to weave baskets
Okay.
a couple of centuries ago. So
Interesting to know, yeah.
So you get the thick ones in position, and then you just tuck the others underneath. If you have too many on one particular side, you cut those off. So you get a sort of dome of these arched branches, and then you just sort of give it a haircut round the edge every few weeks, and it turns out like that. And it's great for sitting under. And mulberries, this one doesn't have any fruit on it. Mulberries like this are super for sitting under because they attract no insects.
Just look at that. You can just imagine sitting under here on a nice day. Fortunately today it's a bit showery. Oh, Nigel, I can see we've got lots of activity now on this circular tree.
Oh yes, this is the one known as a goblet tree. Now you can see the fruit is starting to form. This particular goblet tree has got 4 varieties on it.
Yeah, just looking, you can tell the colour of the leaves on some of them. They vary.
Yes, that's right. The problem, this is not just a goblet tree, but it's also a family tree. It has, as I said, 4 varieties. And family trees are quite difficult to look after. You have to be a real enthusiast to keep them in good condition.
Okay. Is it true that normally you would, to make it easier, you'd have one variety on it? When you've got many varieties like this, then they can get a bit heavy on one side, so there's a lot of maintenance required.
Exactly. If you have more than one variety, the maintenance is excessive, and you have to be
an expert like you.
Well, you have to be a real enthusiast, to put it like that. And you have to look at it every week and make sure it's in balance. And so if you're making a tree like this, we're getting a helicopter. If you're making a tree like this, you really need to have a single variety.
Okay, it's better for beginners anyway.
Yeah, that's right.